Jesus' teachings in the New Testament, recorded in the Gospels, center on love, forgiveness, and non-resistance, traditionally interpreted as a path to salvation. These principles, when applied in a world filled with deceit and manipulation, foster passivity that enables exploitation and harm, undermining their spiritual and practical efficacy. Traditional interpretations, emphasizing forgiveness and non-resistance, expose followers to false prophets who exploit trust for personal gain. Adherence to these interpretations impedes salvation by allowing deceit and harm to persist, particularly when followers justify passivity as spiritual virtue. The New Testament suggests salvation requires active righteousness, implying that enabling harm violates ethical standards. Traditional interpretations focus on teachings such as turning the other cheek, loving enemies, and forgiving repeatedly, framing them as virtues of humility and faith. These interpretations ignore Jesus' actions against hypocrisy and his protection of the vulnerable, creating an ethic that justifies inaction. In a deceitful world, passivity enables harm, as seen in religious communities that ignored abuse due to misplaced forgiveness. Jesus' actions, such as cleansing the temple and defending the vulnerable, demonstrate a balanced approach that counters deceit while fostering love. By integrating these elements, followers navigate a manipulative world, cultivating a just community aligned with Jesus' vision. The analysis unfolds across 4 sections: the flaws of traditional interpretations, Jesus' teachings on confronting deceit, his emphasis on protecting the innocent, and the implications for salvation. Each section builds toward a unified conclusion that active engagement with deceit and harm is essential for both earthly and spiritual goals. Confronting deceit and protecting the innocent align with Jesus' broader teachings, challenging the notion that passivity is the sole path to salvation. This approach addresses a world filled with false prophets, fostering a culture of accountability and care. The analysis relies on the New Testament's portrayal of Jesus' teachings and actions, avoiding external sources. It maintains an academic tone, presenting a structured argument that Jesus' teachings, when reinterpreted to emphasize confrontation and protection, offer a practical framework for navigating deceit while pursuing salvation. By actively addressing manipulation and harm, followers create a community that reflects Jesus' ideals, balancing spiritual aspirations with real-world challenges. Part 1. Flaws of traditional interpretations in a deceitful world. Traditional interpretations of Jesus' teachings, emphasizing non-resistance and forgiveness, foster passivity that enables exploitation and harm in a world dominated by deceit. These interpretations, rooted in teachings such as turning the other cheek and loving enemies, misalign with human behavior's reality, where self-interest and manipulation prevail. In 1st century Judea, under Roman oppression, these teachings addressed specific social dynamics, but their modern application ignores the prevalence of deceitful individuals who exploit trust. Passivity, justified as spiritual virtue, enables harm, as seen in religious communities that ignored abuse due to misplaced forgiveness, undermining both earthly and spiritual goals. The teaching to turn the other cheek, found in Matthew 5 verse 39, is interpreted as absolute passivity, encouraging followers to tolerate abuse. The call to forgive 70 times 7, recorded in Matthew 18 verse 22, is understood as leniency, even toward repeat offenders. These interpretations expose followers to exploitation by manipulative figures. Psychological studies on deception confirm that manipulators target altruistic communities, leveraging trust to extract resources, as seen in modern religious scams. Historical examples, such as cults exploiting passive trust, illustrate the harm of inaction, reinforcing the impracticality of passivity in a deceitful world. The New Testament reveals tensions with traditional interpretations. Jesus' call to love neighbors, in Matthew 22 verse 39, is balanced by warnings against false prophets in Matthew 7 verse 15, suggesting discernment over blind acceptance. Traditional readings prioritize passivity, justifying inaction as faith, which enables harm. Religious communities that ignored abuse due to misplaced forgiveness, such as clergy scandals, demonstrate how passivity fails to address manipulation. By fostering gullibility, traditional interpretations enable manipulative figures to thrive, harming individuals and communities. Economic models, such as game theory, show that consistent altruism without reciprocity leads to exploitation, supporting the view that passivity is impractical. The New Testament's broader teachings, including Jesus's confrontational actions, suggest that passivity is not absolute. Emphasizing discernment and confrontation addresses deceit, preventing harm while aligning with Jesus's vision. This critique sets the stage for examining Jesus's teachings on confronting deceit, which challenge the passive ethos of traditional interpretations. By addressing manipulation actively, followers navigate a deceitful world, fostering a community of accountability. This approach counters the risks of naivety, aligning with the ethical demands of Jesus's teachings while pursuing spiritual goals. The flaws of traditional interpretations highlight the need for a balanced framework that integrates confrontation, ensuring practical application in a world of deceit and manipulation. Part 2. Jesus's teachings on confronting deceit. Jesus's teachings and actions in the New Testament emphasize confronting deceit, particularly when it exploits the vulnerable, challenging traditional interpretations that promote passivity. False prophets exploit trust for personal gain, manipulating followers in a deceitful world. Jesus's approach to deceit, through verbal confrontations and warnings, provides a model for addressing manipulation, fostering a community of accountability while supporting spiritual goals. In Matthew 23 verses 13 to 36, Jesus rebukes the Pharisees, calling them hypocrites for exploiting religious authority while neglecting justice. His condemnation, labeling them whitewashed tombs, exposes their deceit, demonstrating a commitment to challenging manipulative systems. The cleansing of the temple, recorded in John 2 verses 13 to 16, shows Jesus confronting merchants who exploited worshippers, accusing them of turning a sacred space into a den of robbers. These actions reveal a willingness to dismantle deceitful practices, countering the passive ethos of traditional interpretations. Jesus's teachings support confrontation. In Matthew 7 verses 15 to 20, he warns against false prophets, urging followers to discern deceit by examining actions. You will know them by their fruits. This call to vigilance implies active judgment, not blind acceptance. Matthew 18 verses 15 to 17 outlines a process for confronting sin, instructing followers to address wrongdoers directly, escalating to communal action if necessary. Luke 17 verse 3 balances rebuke with forgiveness, stating, "If your brother sins, rebuke him, and if he repents, forgive him," emphasizing accountability alongside compassion. These teachings address the reality of manipulation in a deceitful world. Psychological studies on deception show that manipulators mimic shared values, as seen in modern religious scams, reinforcing the need for discernment. Jesus's warnings against false prophets anticipate this, urging followers to confront deceit to protect communities. Historical cults exploiting passive trust illustrate the harm of inaction, reinforcing the need for active engagement. Confronting deceit fosters a community aligned with Jesus's vision of justice and accountability. The temple cleansing and Pharisee rebukes demonstrate that confrontation disrupts exploitative systems, fostering trust and safety. Exposing fraudulent leaders, such as corrupt televangelists, prevents harm, mirroring Jesus's approach. This active engagement counters traditional interpretations that justify inaction, aligning with the ethical standards for salvation. Matthew 7 verse 21 emphasizes doing God's will, which includes addressing falsehoods, supporting the view that confrontation is essential for spiritual goals. By integrating confrontation, followers navigate real-world deceit, creating a just community while pursuing heaven. Part 3. Jesus's emphasis on protecting the innocent. Jesus's teachings and actions in the New Testament prioritize protecting the innocent, challenging traditional interpretations that foster passivity and enable harm. Passive approaches allow harm to persist, as seen in religious communities that failed to address abuse. Jesus's active defense of the vulnerable and teachings on care for the innocent provide a framework for protection, fostering a just community in a deceitful world while aligning with spiritual goals. In John 8 verses 1 to 11, Jesus protects a woman accused of adultery from stoning, challenging the crowd's judgment with, "Let him who is without sin cast the first stone." This intervention safeguards a vulnerable individual, demonstrating active protection. In Matthew 19 verses 13 to 15, Jesus welcomes children, affirming their value in a society that overlooked them, stating, "Let the little children come to me." The parable of the Good Samaritan, in Luke 10 verses 25 to 37, teaches proactive care, as a Samaritan aids a wounded stranger, crossing ethnic boundaries to protect the innocent. Jesus' teachings reinforce this duty. In Matthew 25 verse 40, he declares, "Whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me," linking care for the vulnerable to spiritual reward. Matthew 18 verse 6 warns against harming the innocent. "Whoever causes one of these little ones who believe in me to sin, it would be better for him to have a millstone fastened around his neck." These teachings emphasize active protection, countering the passivity of traditional interpretations like turning the other cheek, which enable harm when misapplied. Modern religious communities ignoring abuse due to misplaced forgiveness, such as clergy scandals, illustrate how passivity fails to protect the vulnerable, allowing deceitful figures to exploit trust. Psychological studies on community dynamics show that inaction perpetuates harm, supporting the need for active protection. Jesus' teachings and actions anticipate this, urging followers to intervene against harm to safeguard communities. Protecting the innocent fosters a community aligned with Jesus' vision of love and justice. Intervening against harm, as Jesus did, creates a safe environment, mirroring the Good Samaritan's care. Reporting abusive leaders or aiding vulnerable groups reflects this principle, preventing exploitation and building trust. Psychological studies on community resilience show that active protection strengthens social bonds, supporting the view that confronting harm cultivates Jesus' ideal community. This approach aligns with salvation's ethical demands, as Matthew 25 verses 31 to 46 ties heaven to caring for the vulnerable, challenging passivity's risks. By prioritizing protection, followers address real-world deceit, creating a just community while pursuing spiritual goals. Part 4. Implications for salvation in a deceitful world. The New Testament's criteria for salvation, combined with Jesus' teachings and actions, indicate that failing to confront deceit or protect the innocent impedes heaven, supporting a focus on active engagement. Traditional interpretations, emphasizing non-resistance and forgiveness, enable harm by deceitful figures who exploit trust. Confronting deceit and protecting the vulnerable align with Jesus' vision, fostering a just community while meeting salvation's ethical standards in a manipulative world. Salvation requires faith, doing God's will, and righteous actions. John 3 verse 16 promises eternal life through belief, but Matthew 7 verse 21 clarifies, "Only the one who does the will of my Father will enter the kingdom of heaven." The parable of the sheep and goats, in Matthew 25 verses 31 to 46, ties salvation to caring for the vulnerable, stating that neglecting the least leads to eternal punishment. These criteria imply that passivity enabling harm violates God's will, jeopardizing heaven. Jesus' confrontational actions, such as rebuking Pharisees in Matthew 23 verses 13 to 36 and cleansing the temple in John 2 verses 13 to 16, demonstrate that addressing deceit is integral to his teachings. His warning against false prophets in Matthew 7 verse 15 and process for confronting sin in Matthew 18 verses 15 to 17 emphasize accountability. Protecting the innocent, as seen in John 8 verses 1 to 11 and Matthew 25 verse 40, aligns with salvation's requirements, challenging interpretations that justify inaction. Psychological studies on group dynamics show that inaction perpetuates harm, as seen in religious communities ignoring abuse due to passive norms. False prophets exploit passive trust, as evidenced by modern religious scams. Confronting deceit and protecting the innocent prevent such harm, aligning with Matthew 25:31, 46's ethical standards. This active approach fosters a community of justice and care, reflecting Jesus' vision. Exposing corrupt leaders, such as fraudulent televangelists, prevents harm, mirroring Jesus' confrontations. Protecting the vulnerable, as in the Good Samaritan parable, builds trust and safety. Modern examples, such as reforms after clergy scandals, demonstrate that confrontation and protection strengthen communities, aligning with Jesus' teachings. This approach meets salvation's demands, as Matthew 7 verse 21 emphasizes doing God's will, which includes addressing falsehoods and caring for the least. Confronting deceit and protecting the innocent navigate real-world manipulation while pursuing spiritual goals. Traditional interpretations, by fostering passivity, enable harm, potentially impeding heaven. By integrating Jesus' confrontational and protective actions, followers create a just community, addressing the reality of deceit while fulfilling the ethical standards for salvation. This balanced approach counters the risks of naivety, ensuring practical application in a manipulative world. Conclusion: Jesus' teachings triumph through confrontation and protection. Jesus' teachings in the New Testament, when focused on confronting deceit and protecting the innocent, provide a practical framework for navigating a deceitful world while pursuing salvation. Traditional interpretations, emphasizing non-resistance and forgiveness, foster passivity that enables exploitation and harm, misaligning with human behavior's reality and potentially impeding heaven. By integrating Jesus' confrontational actions and teachings on protection, followers cultivate a just community, aligning with his vision and meeting salvation's ethical demands. The flaws of traditional interpretations lie in their justification of an action, exposing followers to manipulation in a world where deceit prevails. Passivity, framed as spiritual virtue, enables harm, as seen in religious communities ignoring abuse due to misplaced forgiveness. Psychological studies and historical examples, such as cults exploiting trust, confirm that altruism invites exploitation, supporting the view that passivity is impractical. Jesus' broader teachings, including warnings against false prophets and processes for confronting sin, challenge this passivity, urging discernment and accountability. Jesus' confrontational actions, such as rebuking Pharisees and cleansing the temple, demonstrate a commitment to dismantling deceitful systems. His teachings on discernment, in Matthew 7 verse 15 and Matthew 18 verses 15 to 17, provide a framework for addressing manipulation, countering the risks of naivety. His protection of the vulnerable, as seen in defending the woman accused of adultery and welcoming children, aligns with teachings like Matthew 25 verse 40, emphasizing care for the least. These actions and teachings offer a balanced approach, addressing real-world deceit while fostering love and justice. The implications for salvation are clear. Failing to confront deceit or protect the innocent violates the New Testament's criteria of doing God's will and caring for the vulnerable. Matthew 25 verses 31 to 46 ties salvation to active righteousness, suggesting that passivity enabling harm impedes heaven. Confronting deceit and protecting the innocent, as Jesus modeled, meet these standards, ensuring alignment with spiritual goals. Modern examples, such as exposing corrupt leaders, demonstrate that this approach prevents harm, fostering a community of trust and safety. Focusing on confrontation and protection navigates a deceitful world while cultivating Jesus' envisioned community. This approach addresses human behavior's reality, countering the risks of gullibility. Followers create a culture of accountability and care, reflecting Jesus' vision of love and justice. By prioritizing discernment and protection, followers uphold Jesus' vision, countering the flaws of passivity and securing a path to heaven in a world of manipulation and harm. Ultimately, confronting deceit and protecting the innocent fulfill the ethical demands of salvation while fostering a just community. This balanced approach, grounded in Jesus' actions and teachings, navigates the challenges of a deceitful world, ensuring both earthly and spiritual goals are met. By actively addressing manipulation and harm, followers create a community that reflects Jesus' ideals, balancing spiritual aspirations with real-world challenges.